What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're gonna be talking about the very first mods that you should do to your car. So I've talked to a lot of you guys in the past in the comment section. If you guys haven't been interactive on that, I highly recommend doing so. We're very interactive on there and also in the community section as well. But long story short though, I've had a lot of people who have just talked to me and said, hey, I have a stock Mustang, what do you recommend doing first? Is there any mods that you would recommend doing before I do this one, etc, etc? And one of the very first mods that I believe you should do to your car, no matter if you like performance or if you like suspension, or even if you're just a big exterior guy and you just want to go for crazy looks, and I recommend getting wheels. Wheels are one of the biggest things in my opinion when it comes to getting a car, because it really sets a stamp on how you're going to progress throughout the rest of your car. For me, it took so many different stages for me to understand where I wanted to go with this build, and I really felt like those wheels really did help me out. Because let's just say, for example, I went with side skirts, or I went with the spoiler, or I went with the mirror caps, and I didn't know if I really wanted to go with this style. Maybe I want to go with a more of a sportier look and go with a skinnier mirror cap. Or maybe I didn't really want to go with these seats. Like, there are so many different factors that go into getting wheels, especially when it comes to color, the sizing. What if you want a thicker tire and want to go with like a track look? Or you're going to do what I did in the past, and I kind of haven't really been touching up on it a little bit, but you can kind of see a little reminiscence of what I used to do. But the white tire letters throughout the tire. This is like a little bit of an older wheel compared to this front one, because this is a Nitto, that's a Toyo, and I'm not really trying to have two different brands really popping out. I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and do your homework before you go ahead and buy a nice set of wheels. And the next point I do want to jump in as well, and I feel like I made a mistake on this in the past, but I hope you guys heard that. That shit sounds good. But the next mod I want to jump into, and it's probably a quite obvious one, and a lot of you guys are like, come on bro, make it up a little bit different, but getting a good exhaust for your car. I really enjoy the exhaust notes on this car, and I used to absolutely hate them. Unfortunately, when it comes to getting a good exhaust, you should spend the extra money to make sure you get the right exhaust. I went through so many different stages on this car when it came to the exhaust notes, and you guys can see all the different progressions of videos throughout this channel that I posted throughout the different months and the different years of all the different exhaust stages. But we have some shorty headers on the car, we have a custom H-pipe, we have some Flowmaster mufflers in the rear, as well as an exhaust cutout from, I believe it was like Speed Lab, or I don't even know the name of the company, but they had like a little cat that was biting or whatever it is. But it took so many different stages for me to completely understand what would be a good exhaust tone, and just throwing one exhaust in your car usually isn't the best bet. And to make sure that you do your homework and make sure that you hear it in person, it really does help, so you can be able to understand, like, is this something I'm going to be able to tolerate every single time I drive this car? Do your homework, or even just go on YouTube, or even go on forums and read what people say. And the next thing I want to jump into as well, before I pierce a hole in my seat, is getting a radio. The radio, in my opinion, was a great addition to the car, because not only did it give me a better look, but also at the same time too, gave it to where I had a lot of different features on here, like where I could watch YouTube, I got my Bluetooth, I can go ahead and get navigation now without having going on my phone, I can call people, I can just, it just made the car feel a lot more modern now than it did when it had this big ass calculator. So when it came to making these parts, I had no clue what I was doing. It just took a little bit of trial and error and failing a million times. But some of those things, again, I got it out of the trash. These pieces, they look disgusting right now because they're dirty and they got rocks all over, because I just drove in this dirty ass area. And this is something you guys could do too. Instead of buying a shorty antenna and doing your homework a little bit and just cutting the tip of it up top and going ahead and just adding a cap over it to make it look like a shorty antenna. And it didn't affect my radio at all, and I've never once had an issue with the radio. There's a lot of different features that you could do and try something, because you never know if you have the best next thing coming out. Because if all you know, maybe there's a lot of people out there that like these style of side skirts, but I have absolutely no clue of that, because I never really promoted it. But there are people out there too that have always talked about my front lip. That's one of the #1 things a lot of people do talk about, because they're like, wow, I really like that front lip. Where'd you get it? Sorry, you can't get it anywhere. Can I buy it off of you? No, you can't. But I could potentially make you one in the future if I decided to make a bunch of custom parts. And the downside though is it doesn't cost a lot of money. And for those people that do want to spend the money, will go ahead and want your product. And that goes with anything in business. If you have something that people want, you can make a profit off it, or even a living. Now, another thing as well, and if this is a little bit too expensive for you and it's kind of getting out of your price range a little bit, but I promise you it will help you in the long run, and that is getting really reliable suspension parts, and I don't know if you guys can see it in here or not. For example, in here you guys can see I have a rear lower control arm, but I also have a rear seat SwayBar, as well as a UMI Panhard bar brace, and so many other little goodies that are under the car. And not only did it cost a little bit of money, I believe it cost me around $1,700 altogether, and I'm not trying to give you guys a heart attack out here, but I'm telling you, if you do the homework and you really think about it over in the long run, not only am I benefiting this car now, giving it better handling and better response time and so forth, and if I ever want to do power upgrades in the future, the suspension parts are able to handle it. Because this car here is a 2014 and it is getting a little older, and it is showing, especially even in the trunk area, for example, where the paint's starting to fade like absolute crazy. So you start thinking, well, if the paint's fading, well, the suspension components and other parts in the car are probably starting to get tired as well. So over time, you're gonna have to start replacing those pieces, and once you already do it early and you upgrade those parts, like for example, the SwayBar, the lower control arm, or even the Panhard bar braces, or the Strut tower brace, or whatever the case may be, once you start replacing all those little pieces, you don't have to worry about it anymore. All you really have to focus on is just making sure that they just are held intact and they don't end up coming loose. And one of the main reasons why I ended up bringing up some of the most expensive mods that you should do to your car is because when you start spending a little bit of extra money to really make sure you get a good, high quality product, it's gonna last a lot longer than something you just cheap out on. And I am a big expert on buying cheap shit and thinking it's gonna last forever when it usually doesn't. If I was to tell you guys that if you were to get this cheap item, it's gonna last you forever, I'd just be lying. There are some things that are cheap that will help you. And we're gonna jump straight into the engine bay. Now, I think the very first thing you're gonna think is, oh yeah, he's gonna definitely talk about the cold air intake. That thing's gonna be so great, I should get one of those. The only way that I personally believe that that is a great mod to get is if you want to go for noise and a maybe, just maybe a little bit of throttle response. But you might as well just keep the stock air intake box, because if it's acting the same way as your cold air intake, it's not really doing much other than giving you little swishy sounds. Now, if you do get a tune for this car like how I have on here that's adjusted to the cold air intake, it's going to give you a little bit more of a throttle response, a little bit more of a power increase, and so forth. So if you do get a cold air intake, expect to go get a tune as well with it to give it the most full potential out of it. Now, this very last portion isn't really a mod, but is something that you should definitely look into, because this is something I wanted to make sure I had on my car to protect my ass in case if anything ever happened, and that is getting a dash camera. This is extremely important. In my opinion, it's probably more important than anything else that's on the car, because this not only is going to protect you, someone could run a red light, someone can run a stop sign. I don't need to explain all of it, but this will help you overall if you ever have an issue of it, someone complaining it's not their fault when you have all the footage right there. That was about $80 overall, and I'm very glad that I ended up getting that, because if I didn't get that, I could have potentially ran into a situation in the future where I'm like, well, shit, I wish I had that. I should have spent the $80. Now it's my fault, and now I got to pay for it because they believe that person. Overall, I think one of the most important things you should get for your car is a dash cam. And I don't think a lot of you guys probably thought I was going to say that, but I think that is one of the absolute number one thing that you should get when it comes to getting any sort of upgrades to your car. I want you guys to pick and choose what you believe is going to be a great mod for your car. I like the SwayBars. I like the Strut tower braces. I love the coilovers. I think those were all great additions, and I wish I would have bought those earlier on when I first started doing this build, because it really helps you have a direction of where you want to go, or what am I trying to aim for. Am I going for drag? Am I going for track? Am I going for drift? Am I going for street? It could be so many different other factors. All these little different things will really help you figure out exactly what you want. I wanted to make this video broad. I didn't want to make it so fine detailed where it's like, no, that won't work, or maybe I'm not looking for that, because everyone has their own different tastes and their own different opinions. And with that being said, if you guys have any questions about the car or want to see any more of these types of videos, you guys know exactly where to find them. I love y'all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.